Coming up on iOS today, Rosemary Orchard and I walk you through a bunch of Apple's health and safety features on all sorts of Apple's devices. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by Imperfect Foods. Combating climate change feels big and overwhelming. There's an easy and delicious way to make an impact. It's Imperfect Foods. Right now, Imperfect Foods is offering our listeners 20% off your first 4 orders when you go to imperfectfoods.com and use the promo code iOS. Wow. Hello and welcome to iOS Today, the show where we talk all things iOS, HomePod OS, TV OS, Watch OS, iPad OS. Look, it's all the OSs that Apple has on offer, and we love to talk about them here on iOS Today. I am one of your hosts, Mikah Sargent.
And I'm Rosemary Orchard.
Hello, Rosemary. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling pretty good, but I'm feeling that maybe there's some things that everybody can learn from this show, because I learned some things doing research for the show, which is always extra fun.
That's what so today's topic I'm super pumped about because over the course of the past couple of weeks on MacBreak Weekly, we've had some guests on, and the guests talked about some of the different features that they use within iOS and watchOS. And then in real life, I had talked to some people who were mentioning some of the features that Apple has that I think not everybody knows about, or they know about some of them, they don't know about all of them. And so I thought this would be the perfect time to kind of cover some of the health and safety features that Apple has, because it's pretty in depth. And over time, of course, they've announced these things. But when they come out, they trickle out over time. But now there are so many that it's the perfect time to discuss them all. And what's really handy here is that we can kind of get a basic walkthrough, a basic table of contents, if you will, by heading to a very special page within the Health app. So we're going to start by launching the Health app and finding our health checklist. You can do this by tapping on your avatar in the top right of the Health app. You'll see your face, or maybe you just have a little icon that shows a generic person. And underneath the features section of the page that pops up, your health profile, there's an option called Health Checklist. Health Checklist is a fantastic way to make sure you've got everything that you want filled out, filled in, and figured out. So these are some of the things that we're going to talk about here on the show. Medical ID, emergency SOS, fall detection, low heart rate notifications, high heart rate notifications, irregular rhythm notifications, ECGs, cardio fitness levels, blood oxygen, walking steadiness notifications, headphone notifications, noise notifications, and hand washing. Yes, a lot of features to cover, and we won't get to all of them here on the show, but that is a great place to go if you want to make sure that you have all of those different things set up, particularly if you're rocking the Apple Watch iPhone combo. If you don't have both of those, then some of these features are not going to be available to you, but still many of them are. And I felt like the best thing to start with, in honor of the iOS betas, reminding people about this feature, is Emergency SOS. So Emergency SOS is a pretty nifty feature. We talked a little bit about it, I believe last week even, where it lets you, in an emergency, dial your emergency services and also communicate with your emergency contacts. So what Apple says about this feature is it says your iPhone and Apple Watch, in my case, because I have both, can quickly call emergency services and message your emergency contacts. And this feature is always active. There are a couple of different features, or a few, I should say, different features that you can set up with it. On your iPhone, you press and hold the side button and either of the 2 volume buttons, and you hold that for a certain period of time. It doesn't actually have a specific time, but it says press and hold the side button and either volume button to make an emergency call. In certain regions, you may need to specify an emergency service to dial. Auto call requires a SIM card. Now that you hear what that says, auto call requires a SIM card. If you have a SIM card in your phone, it doesn't matter if you have a current cellular plan or not. By having a SIM card in your phone, those emergency service calls are free and will take place. There are different toggles that you have, including call with hold, call with 5 presses, and countdown sound. Call with hold means that you do press and hold those buttons, either up or down volume and the side button, and in holding it, then it will count down and then call those services. Call with 5 presses is where you rapidly press just the side button 5 times, and that will also let you do that. These are toggleable, so you can turn them on or off. And then countdown sound, which will play a sound out loud so that you know that you're doing that, because there have been a few times where I've accidentally held those buttons, or my phone's been put in a place where both of the buttons are being pressed. So then I see that countdown, or I hear that countdown sound and know, okay, I need to turn that off because there's nothing going on right now. And then if you have an Apple Watch, you'll also see the setting here to press and hold the side button on your Apple Watch to make a call. So this is, again, just the side button on the Apple Watch. That's the big button on the side of the Apple Watch. That's why it's called, let's see if we can move it around. That's why it's called the side button, and pressing and holding that button will let you make emergency service calls. At the very bottom of emergency SOS, you'll see options that say emergency contacts, and that is where you'll have the option to add the different contacts. They will get notified with a message when you have called emergency services, and iOS will both let them know that emergency services have been called for some reason and send those emergency contacts your current location. So all of that stuff gets sent with emergency SOS. I don't know about you, Rosemary, but this is one of the first things that I make sure all of the people I know have enabled and turned on.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's actually the reason why I bought an Apple Watch for my grandmother that combined with the fall detection, because it meant that if something happens, then my mum is one of the people that will automatically be notified should she call the emergency services. And then it's not, several hours later when, she realizes, oh, wait, I should probably let Mandy know. Like, my mum kind of prefers to know earlier rather than later with these things. And it is really easy to do. If you ever also need to call the emergency services and you don't want to wait for the countdown, if you press and hold the side button, and I'm holding myself at a very weird angle to show my phone on screen, then the option at the bottom allows you to swipe to call the emergency SOS as well. That's also a way that you can get into somebody's medical ID. The middle option there will just bring up a medical ID for a person. So if you find somebody who appears to need help and is not able to communicate with you, then you can check their medical ID for any allergies, their weight, height, etc., and their emergency contacts so that you can get in touch with them.
Speaking of, that is the next thing that we will be talking about, your medical ID. This is another thing that I always want people to set up. Medical ID is a way to give information to first responders when you are having an emergency. As Rosemary showed, it can be on your Apple Watch. It also shows up on your iPhone. And this has lots of different information. You can edit it from the Health app. Of course, we'll have links to all of this stuff so that you know exactly how to set it up. But mine has my name, a photo of myself so that they can kind of confirm that is me, my blood type, an estimate of my weight and height, the language, my primary language that I speak, my emergency contacts, and then it also has the fact that I'm an organ donor, so that information is in there as well in the awful event that I were to die in an emergency, that then the doctors and all of that would know and be able to look me up in the donor information and take the necessary steps there. And then it's toggleable whether you want to give access to this information when your phone is locked and during an emergency call. I personally think that it's a great feature to have enabled for both of those things. So that way the information is available to the first responders when they have it, as soon as they have it. Now, This is, I want to read about the share during emergency call option. It says, when you enable share during emergency call, your iPhone or Apple Watch can automatically share the information from your medical ID with emergency services when you call or text from a supported location. Your photo is not shared. Sharing your medical ID information can help emergency services provide improved response. And that the other thing that it can also include are allergies and reactions that you might have, so that information is available as well. And I should be clear, like this stuff is, if the emergency line supports it, this stuff is sent encrypted over the line so that they have that information and are able to make use of that. So it's not just physically on your device. That's the first option, show when locked. The second one, share during emergency call, will actually send your information to the emergency services so they have that available. I also like that in the health checklist, the thing that we talked about at the top of the show, it actually shows me the last time I updated my medical ID, which was on June 9th of 2021. So that way you can make sure, you might, people's weight and height and emergency contacts might change over time. And so those are some things that you might want to update, or maybe you've made different decisions on your organ donor status. And in fact, that was one of the things that I, in researching the show, I looked myself up in the organ donor registry, and I had a address from Missouri still in my organ donor registry. And then I also specified some different things in there about what organs would go to where, be it medical versus research and science. So all of that was very good to be aware of.
I would just take a moment to note that the sharing the medical ID with the emergency services is only available in the United States. And that works, however, in the United States with calling to 911 or texting to 911 if you can text to 911 in your location. So that is good to know. I personally would recommend to as well, if you've got any friends and family who've got allergies and so on, and they don't really tell anybody about it, prompt them to make sure that their allergies, any medication they take regularly and stuff is put into the health app. And it's worth checking, the clocks go forward, the clocks go back. You check your smoke detectors, check your medical ID to make sure that everything's up to date there at the same time, so that, if there is an emergency, fingers crossed there won't be. But at the very least, everybody should have pretty up-to-date information in those situations.
All right, we'll cover one more before we head into the break. This is one that I think a lot of folks were pretty excited about. And it was kind of funny because when this feature came out, there were some folks who kind of said, well, it might be coming a little too late given that we're through with the pandemic. And now we kind of go, oh, right, it's still going on. And that is the ability to use your Apple Watch to track and sort of be notified about hand washing. So this is a feature that was, I think it goes all the way back to, Apple Watch Series 4 or later, where if you have an Apple Watch, you launch the Watch app, and then you can choose the option called hand washing, and then turn on allow notifications, hand washing timer, and hand washing reminders. Hand washing timer, the way that works is the microphone in your Apple Watch will be listening for a very specific kind of set of sounds, including sort of the sound that soap makes as it rubs between your fingers, and then also the sound of running water. And it combines that with the motion of your wrist. So the sensors that are built in, the gyroscope and all of those sensors, to sort of guess that you're washing your hands. At that point, it will start a timer. Now, the recommended amount of time to wash your hands is 20 seconds. So you're scrubbing for 20 seconds before you rinse the soap away from your hands. And what's cool about this is it doesn't, there are times where it doesn't immediately know for sure that you are washing your hands, but as it's collecting more data, then it goes, oh, yes, this is definitely hand washing. And so you might go, well, what if it doesn't pick it up right away? Then it's going to start at 20 seconds and I'm going to be washing my hands for 30, 45, 50 seconds, which isn't a terrible thing. But what I love is that this is smart enough to where if it thought that you had started washing your hands, but it wasn't quite sure yet enough to show the timer, it kind of keeps that in its mind, if you will. And then when it has confirmed, yes, absolutely, this person is washing their hands, then it will use the information that already has that sort of flag in the data and go, okay, they started washing their hands at this point. So now I'm going to display a timer on the screen that's at 12 seconds instead of 20 seconds because that amount of time had already elapsed. So it's a pretty cool feature to kind of, as I've used it over time, just to sort of see how it works. Apple was very smart about the way that this was set up, but it's just a really nice reminder. And if you want to, you can turn on hand washing reminders as well. What that does is it uses the location information that you have to remind you when you get back home from going somewhere to wash your hands. So you may have gone to the store, you may have gone out, what have you. And it's just to give you a little tap on your wrist and say, hey, you were just out. You might want to wash your hands, which is always a good idea to do whenever you get back home. So hand washing features on Apple Watch Series 4 or later, I definitely think it's worth setting up in your watch. All right, we have lots more to cover, and we will get to the next set of features momentarily. But I do want to take a quick break to tell you about Imperfect Foods. Combating climate change feels big and frankly overwhelming. So what can one person by themselves do? Well, there is an easy and delicious way to make an impact, and that is with our sponsor bringing you this episode of iOS Today. It's Imperfect Foods. Imperfect Foods is a grocery delivery service that offers an entire line of sustainable groceries that taste delicious and reduce waste just by embracing the natural imperfections in food. You can visit imperfectfoods.com to see if they deliver in your area. That's very important. You want to make sure that they do deliver in your area. And once you sign up, you can personalize your weekly grocery order with fresh seasonal produce, pantry staples, and yummy snacks. Plus, your order will arrive on the same day each week, making it easy to build a stress-free routine. I love that. Thursday is the day in my area, and so I can always count on that grocery delivery coming at that time. On average, Imperfect Foods customers save 6 to 8 pounds of food with every order, and unlike on-demand delivery companies, Imperfect delivers weekly by neighborhood, which is a unique model that produces 25 to 75% fewer emissions than individual trips to the grocery store. Plus, you can say goodbye to packaging guilt. Imperfect Foods is the only national grocery delivery company that makes it easy to return your packaging after every order. I went online, I signed up to get some groceries delivered to my doorstep, and the process was super simple. I got to kind of choose what works for me, what doesn't. The day came for me to pick the groceries specifically that I wanted, and I hopped in there and I was like, you know what you've selected is great. I think these will all be things that we'll use for sure. And then it came on Thursday. I got, I believe it was a text message. It was either a text message or an email to track my order. And I was able to see where on the map the delivery truck was so that I could go out and grab it as soon as it came. Super well packaged. And as I mentioned at the just a moment ago, what I loved was that it actually has options for you to make sure that the packaging gets reused, returned, and recycled in all of those different ways. Super good feeling, rather than because I've had some food prep companies that just kind of don't really know what to do with all of that packaging. So this was very easy to do. Right now, Imperfect Foods is offering our listeners 20% off your first 4 orders when you go to imperfectfoods.com and you use the promo code iOS. Again, that's 20% off your first 4 orders. That's up to an $80 value at imperfectfoods.com when you use the promo code iOS. Join the movement at imperfectfoods.com, promo code iOS. I got to tell you, just go, see if they deliver to your area, give it a try, and check it out, imperfectfoods.com. And don't forget to use that promo code, because that lets them know, oh, right, Mikah, he was talking about us on the show. Somebody decided to sign up, and now I know that Mikah talking about Imperfect Foods actually is working. So that is a very important thing. Promo code iOS. Thank you, Imperfect Foods, and thank you to you out there listening right now who said, you know what, I'm going to do that. Imperfectfoods.com, promo code iOS. All right, back to the show. Let's talk about our hearts. There are a ton of features that Apple has added over time to heart health. And we've got all sorts of different notifications, all sorts of different bits of data that Apple can combine to make work. And so I was hoping you could tell us, Rosemary, about cardio fitness. This is a specific newer feature that has come to watchOS that I think a lot of people who are sort of really into exercise might know about, but the rest of us are not as aware of how and what this feature does, what it means, and how it relates to our overall health.
Exactly. Yeah. So cardio fitness, especially if you have been playing with the betas of iOS, then you'll probably have seen a few more notifications about this than everybody else, because I know for me, it appeared on, I think, 2 or 3 of the beta installs. But what you can do in the Health app on your phone, you can go to the heart section. And then if you scroll down, then you'll actually find a bunch of information, including cardio fitness levels, which you can set up. And once you go through and actually set up all of this information, then you will actually get notifications about your cardio health. So, for example, if you are regularly experiencing heart rates which go outside of the norms, then that can, give you a warning and say, your heart rate appears to be very low right now, or your heart rate is pretty high and it's peaked unexpectedly. And that sort of notification can be very helpful. It could be the warning sign of, for example, a panic attack, or it could be the warning sign of something much more serious for your long-term health, such as cardiac arrest. If you are, somebody who is potentially susceptible to that. You can also see, however, your regular cardio fitness data, which is something that is really nice to be able to track. And I was just pulling mine up, or about to pull mine up. And of course, I've managed to accidentally close the application. So I will find that in a moment. But it allows you to track your cardio fitness over time. And so you can view it over days, weeks, months, 6 months, and a year, just like you can everything else. But it can be really useful as a tool to judge how good your exercise routine is, especially if you started something new and you think, maybe this isn't having an amazingly positive benefit on me. Have a look at your cardio fitness levels, because you might be very pleasantly surprised. I know I was when I originally started doing ballet, to find that everything has got much better for me since then, which is, of course, the idea of doing the exercise. If you are doing this, you need to wear your Apple Watch for at least 24 hours to start with, so that it gets some baseline data with which you can then track everything else. If it doesn't have that, then of course any suggestions that it makes, like, hi, your heart rate seems to have spiked unexpectedly, or your heart rate is incredibly low, will be inaccurate. And of course, if you do lend your Apple Watch to somebody else, or, you have a child who picks it up and puts it on, then that data is going to affect things. So I have a friend who their kid put her Apple Watch on their bunny. And unsurprisingly, she started getting some notifications that her heart rate was unexpectedly high, because a rabbit's heart beats quite a bit faster than a human's. But it's good to know that it works. And I would suggest that is a much better way of testing this feature if you're interested in seeing what these notifications look like on your device, than actually having a panic attack or something, something deadlier, perhaps, if you want to see the notifications on your own device.
Yeah, that is a much more delightful way. I have actually received high heart rate notifications in the past due to medications that I take. There are times when that appears to be an issue. What's cool, though, is that Apple also offers the ability to notate certain medications that can make a difference to heart rate. So you are able to then kind of adjust things based on your individual cardio health and how that is affected by what you do. Now, the VO2 max levels, I love the term cardio fitness instead of VO2 max, because VO2 max just sounds odd. It doesn't, it sounds like a very sort of sportsy, workouty term, versus cardio fitness, which is just like, how fit is your heart? How good is your body at using the oxygen that it needs to kind of keep going during exercise? And, having low cardio fitness is improved by doing more cardio exercise, by strengthening your cardiovascular system with higher intensity cardiovascular exercises, and more frequently doing cardiovascular exercises. Those can all have an effect on your overall VO2 max measurement. Now, the one that they ended up talking about on MacBreak Weekly, we had on the show Doc Rock, and Doc Rock is... he had, I think it was like I don't know the exact details of the surgery, but basically he said, I've got a metal knee. So his knee had to be replaced, or part of his knee had to be replaced, whatever it is. And so his mobility has changed over time. And he and Leo were kind of comparing their mobility measurements on the show, which I found a really interesting conversation as they were both looking at theirs. There are some great options in the health app for walking steadiness and mobility measurements in general. Again, if we go to that health checklist we talked about at the very top of the show, and you scroll down far enough, you'll see an option that says walking steadiness notifications. And it says you'll receive a notification if you're at an elevated risk of falling in the next 12 months. Now, the way that the iPhone and your Apple Watch do this is by using the sensors in these devices to get an understanding of your mobility, of your walking gait, how you climb stairs. There are all of these different measurements, and there's actually a whole category within the health app called mobility. And I'm going to name some of the different features. There's stair speed down. There's step length, which it says is the distance between your front foot and back foot when you're walking. The ability to take longer steps is related to your long-term mobility. Walking requires strength and coordination, so changes in these can affect your ability to take longer steps. There's walking speed in general. Double support time. This is a really interesting thing. It says this is the percentage of time during a walk that both feet are on the ground. A lower value means you spend more of your walk with your weight on one foot instead of two, which can be a sign of better balance. During a typical walk, this measure falls between 20% to 40%. So a lower value is a better value than a higher value. Walking, again, requires strength and coordination. Then there's stair speed up. There's walking asymmetry. There's 6-minute walk, which is just a measurement of how long or how far you go in 6 minutes. And then an overall measurement of your walking steadiness. I'll read what walking asymmetry is as well. It says, in a healthy walking pattern, the timing of the steps you take with each foot are very similar. Walking asymmetry is the percent of time that your steps with one foot are faster or slower than the other foot. This means the lower the percentage of asymmetry, the healthier your walking pattern. My walking asymmetry is 0%. So that's the best you can do with that.
Yes.
And, changes a little bit. And then last, I'll just read walking steadiness, and then we can kind of talk about our values if you want to. It says, walking steadiness is an estimate of your stability while walking. iPhone calculates walking steadiness using your walking speed, your step length, your double support time, and walking asymmetry data that's stored in health. This provides a sense of the way you walk. So all of that comes together to determine your walking steadiness. So yes, did you want to tell us a little bit about what you got?
Yeah, I was just going to say, when you look at this, it is worth zooming out to the 6 months or the year view, just because, obviously it normalizes the data a little bit by averaging things out. And especially when you've just got one reading, make sure you scroll down, you check what it says. This one needs to fall between 20 and 40%. And so me being between 25 and 30% is actually good. And then if you zoom out to the year, assuming you've had an Apple Watch a year, then you will actually see, a pretty solid line there of this information, which is really nice to know. And what I found very interesting, Mikah, is the walking asymmetry. If I zoom out to a year, there's a little peak last year in May. And that was me spraining my ankle. So wow. I sprained my ankle, and it actually shows up here because they have that information. And it's really interesting to know that when my ankle's been playing up or I've damaged myself, that it actually shows up. And so you can find out some pretty useful information.
Yeah. And that's what Doc Rock was talking about Leo had a better stare up and stare down speed than Doc Rock did, and that's because he has a knee that doesn't work as well as his other one, and so going up and down stairs takes him a lot more time. And then he was also able to see, though, as he's gone through recovery and gone through what is that called? Physiotherapy. Physiotherapy, how over time his whole steadiness has improved. So this can be a really motivating thing as well. Yeah. This set of features. I think it's really cool. Yes.
Yeah,
and as Knox Harrington. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, my mom used it after she had a knee replacement. She didn't know that this feature existed. And so I showed her some of this information and helped her keep an eye on it and set it up so that she could easily, find it by adding them to your favorites. That's things that you can do in the health app. You can add certain elements of your health to your favorites so that when you open the app, it appears on the main screen. And I set that up for her. And it was really useful for her to see that she was doing as well as she thought, or occasionally she wasn't doing as well as she thought. But then when she went back to see the physio, they were really impressed with her, because, she was actually doing what they expected her to be able to do, and because she was keeping track of the data, so they could see it's not just her putting out a performance for right now, it's actually she's doing this consistently, which was really nice.
As Knox Harrington said in the chat, it's important to know that some of these walking features, some of these mobility measurements are done by your iPhone, not your Apple Watch. And so you, even without an Apple Watch, can get some of these. For example, the step length measurements, all of that, I looked into my data sources, all of that is coming from my iPhone, none of it from my Apple Watch. The stair speed up and stair speed down, of course, are coming from the Apple Watch because of the built-in barometer that is used to determine elevation in a space. Walking asymmetry, the data that's there is coming from my iPhone 13 and then previous iPhones that I've had before this one. And of course, like 6-minute walk, and those ones will also come from your iPhone. So you don't have to sort of worry that you won't get to see any of these features if you don't have an Apple Watch. An Apple Watch will give you some of the features that the iPhone won't, and will improve some of the features that your iPhone is tracking. But just know that you're not completely out of luck if you don't have all of them, because they are there. Up next is a general feature that Apple just added to iOS and to watchOS called Fitness Trends. And what this is a set of features that kind of give you an idea of how your overall activity is trending over time. It gives you an idea of your exercise that you do in a day, your stand goal if you have an Apple Watch, which is how many times within a 12-hour... I think you're supposed to stand once an hour in 12 hours of the day is the idea. Distance that you've moved, stand minutes, cardio fitness, walking pace, running pace. And then you can get some information on kind of what is maybe not doing well or could be doing better. Just some ideas of things to look at. So that is something that you can see in the Fitness app on iOS if you want to kind of get an idea of your overall fitness trends. But again, that's specific to fitness, not necessarily to health. That's just an idea of how you are moving, when you're moving, etc. All right. Last but not least, of what we're going to cover today are some different sound features, I guess we'll call them. There's headphone audio levels, headphone accommodations, and environmental sound levels. Let's start with environmental sound levels, because this is a feature that is specific to the Apple Watch, where your watch can monitor the noise around you and give you a notification if the noise around you gets to an unsafe level. So this is a level that data has shown results in hearing loss or hearing damage over time. It's a very simple thing to set up. You can open the Health app and then choose hearing to get an idea of the trend over time. So over the past year, I have been okay in terms of sound exposure. But essentially what's happening is the microphone within your Apple Watch is just measuring the decibels around you. And if it gets too high, if it's too loud around you for a sustained enough period of time, it will give you a little notification saying, hey, the current environmental noise is at a place where it could cause damage to you. Just thought you should know. And it's really nice to kind of not only have that information in the moment, but also to have that information over time. Because if you go to your ear doctor or something and your doctor's like, wow, you've had some ear loss. What's going on here? Or some hearing loss. What's going on here? To be able to see those trends and know, oh, that's what's going on here. I have not been doing a good job of sort of keeping track of the sound around me and making sure that I'm not damaging my ears. So something worth considering, worth setting up. It's also worth noting that I've had that feature turned on since the Apple Watch has supported it, and I've not noticed issues with battery life, because that is a question I think a lot of people have. How is that going to affect my battery life over time? That has not been something. The other version of this feature is headphone audio levels. And this is a feature that I also feel is worth setting up. What this feature does is it's sort of like listening to, but it's really just monitoring the volume that is coming out of the headphones through which you listen to music, to podcasts, etc. And what it does is it will notify you, hey, the sound is way too loud for your hearing. You might want to turn that down. I know a lot of parents who like to make sure that this feature is set up for their kids, for example. There's an option to reduce loud sounds, which is really nice, so that it will determine that if audio is over a certain decibel level, that it will just make sure that it doesn't ever go over that. And what's really nice too is that you can use this best of all with Apple's own headphones, simply because those ones are specifically tailored for this. But you do have the ability to use this with any pair of headphones that you have set up, be they plugged in or via Bluetooth. And the only thing that Apple says that you should do is make sure that in settings in the Bluetooth menu, you make sure that you choose the right classification for Bluetooth headphones versus speakers or other things, because that will make a difference on what it reads as the measurements for those. And there on the side, it says headphone audio measurements are most accurate when using Apple or Beats headphones, which makes sense because those are Apple's own, so they have the values for those. And it says audio played through other headphones can be estimated based on the volume of your iPhone. Of course, depending on what kind of headphones you have, if you've got an external amplifier or something like that, that could make a difference. But the phone does its best to measure that as much as possible. And then, Rosemary, I was hoping you could tell us about the last feature here, which are headphone accommodations specific to Apple's AirPods, AirPods Max, Apple EarPods. That's the one that plugs in either with a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack or the Lightning connector. In fact, I have a pair right here. They used to come with the phone. Some of you may be familiar with them. And look at that little Lightning connector there on the end. How weird. AirPods second generation, AirPods Pro, Powerbeats Pro, Beats Solo Pro, and Beats Fit Pro. These ones, which are, of course, Apple's devices, can make use of headphone accommodations. So what are headphone accommodations, Rosemary?
Well, headphone accommodations are primarily for people who have difficulties with their hearing and therefore need their technology to help them out. And what you can do, just as a fact for everybody that is using AirPods or something similar, is if you are using, and this is more specific to the AirPods and Beats that go in ear rather than your over ears, if you just put one of them in, it does actually work in mono. That is a useful feature to know, so that if you're just listening to something and you put one AirPod your AirPod in, it comes out in mono. But what you can do inside of settings, inside of the accessibility section, is you can actually scroll down and then you can go to the audio visual section, which I swear I was looking at just 2 seconds ago. And now because I'm on camera, I actually can't see it. There it is. It's audio visual. It's in the third group in the settings area for accessibility. And then you can turn on headphone accommodations. And once you've turned these on, there are a number of different customizations that you can do, including doing things like tuning for balance, tone, vocal range, and brightness, which does sound a little bit like you could customize, for example, your audio listening experience. But if you are looking to do that, then that is best done specifically on the headphones or in the music app or whatever is playing things back for those kinds of adjustments. But this means that if you are specifically looking to massively increase, for example, the brightness in audio, then you can do so. I don't know how to describe brightness in audio. It's one of those things, Mikah. I learned what it was when I was at school, but I can recognize it, but I can't explain it at all. But furthermore, you can actually hear it. Yeah, you know it when you hear it, right? You can actually do a customized audio setup as well, but you will need supported headphones for this. And because my iPhone is plugged in for iOS today, unfortunately, I can't actually demo that because otherwise I wouldn't have a way to share my screen. But if you are doing this, then you can use audiogram data. So if you've done an audiogram and got that imported to the Health app, then you can use that data to help balance and set up your headphones. This does also mean if you've got, for example, greater hearing loss in one ear than the other, then you can actually compensate things and move more of the audio to the left ear, which does mean, for example, the center would be off. If you think of your sound like a 5.1 surround sound system where it's going around you, it will balance things more to one side. But that also means the added benefit of you actually being able to hear all of those things. So I would suggest that's probably a good option. Now, I will note that if you play with this stuff and then you forget about it, you might want to come back in and toggle off headphone accommodations. The last time I played with this, which was yesterday evening, I then put my AirPods in to listen to some music while I was working this morning and went, why does everything sound weird? And it was because I've been messing with things and I'd set things up. So that's a potential place to troubleshoot. There is also the option for those people with tinnitus to enable background sounds, which can help minimize distractions essentially. But this can be really useful, and you can actually do this with media playing. And I know my dad has a pretty bad tinnitus, and when I showed him this feature, he was really, really pleased that he could have, there's only a few different options. There's balance noise, bright noise, dark noise, ocean, rain, and stream, but you can have these mixed with your music or whatever other audio you're listening to or video to try and help block that out, or distractions if that's the case. You can also stop these when the phone is locked, which could be useful if you want to demonstrate it but don't want it working all the time, for example.
All right. That is a good coverage of many of the health and safety features that are available on iOS, watchOS, etc. Again, we will include links to these different features in the show notes so that you can make sure that you get those set up. But your first stop is that thing we mentioned at the top of the show, the health checklist, because you can basically just go down that list and boom, 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 suddenly you've got it figured out. All right, with that, it is time to move on to the news. All right, it is time for the news. And up first is a new voice for Siri in America. Yes. Apple. So first of all, Apple announced that it was going to be adding some new voices to Siri so that you could, choose some different options with the American voice in particular. And one of the things, they didn't outright say this, but they did mention that they were trying to reflect the diverse audience that existed in obviously all of Apple's different users that they have, the different customers that they have. I, as a Black person, can go, okay, I know what they did. They added a voice that is sort of toned to sound more like a woman of color, and a voice that is toned to sound more like a man of color. So two people of color got added to Siri's Voices, and I actually very much like the new male Siri Voice. That's the one that I use. My partner uses, I think, the South African male, so it's like a whole different. Oh, no. The Indian woman, that's who it is. I think at one point tried the South African male, but the Indian woman. I like the American male. I think it's Voice 4. It's either Voice 3 or Voice 4. But Apple has added a new one, and it's my understanding that once again, Apple is trying to make voices available that sound more like the different people that exist in its ecosystem. And this is kind of what Apple said about it. We're excited to introduce a new Siri voice for English speakers, giving users more options to choose a voice that speaks to them. Millions of people around the world rely on Siri every day to help get things done, so we work to make the experience feel as personalized as possible. And the company said that the voice was recorded by a member of the LGBTQ plus community. From the reaction that has taken place regarding this voice, it feels like a non-gendered voice, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. This voice feels more gender neutral and is just an option, I think, for folks who want, again, a voice that maybe doesn't have too much sort of tone one way or the other. And I like that.
Yes. It's great that Apple are being more inclusive with this. And I believe I actually saw, and now, of course, I can't find it, that somebody actually linked to the artist on Twitter. And they are, apparently quite a nice person. But apparently it was found originally in the iOS betas with the voice file named Quinn, which is a name that you can't say, yes, it's definitely male or definitely female, because I know two Quinns and, they're very different people. So I'm really glad that there is more inclusivity here, because if you don't want to use the voice, there's nothing stopping you. You can, if you want, have a British male and pretend that your iPhone is Jeeves, the butler, or you can pick somebody who sounds more like you, whatever works for you in your virtual voice assistant.
Absolutely. All right. And then next, the iOS 15.4 beta also adds the anti-stalking alerts that Apple had mentioned in relation to AirTags. Apple had outlined in a news report, in a press release, the different things that it was going to be doing to address some of the concerns that people had about tracking. And so those alerts have been shown up in the iOS 15.4 beta and will be available when folks download iOS 15.4. It'll probably launch sometime later this month is the current thought. If Apple announces a new iPhone at its March event, which is bound to happen, the March event, I don't know about the iPhone, but the March event, then it's likely that phone will ship with the new version of iOS, at which point iOS 15.4 will be available to other people. I was hoping that you could tell us a little bit about this next one, because I am not a developer, and I think that you might be more aware of what's going on here with the App Store Small Business Program.
Yeah, so the App Store Small Business Program is a program Apple announced, I can't remember if it's 1 or 2 years ago, but either way, developers, whether they're solo developers or businesses making less than $1 million a year, got a commission rate of 15% from Apple rather than the standard 30%, which is a fairly significant chunk of money. However, they disqualified any and all developers who transferred apps into their account. So say, for example, you had a friend who got a new job and they were unable to continue maintaining an app that they'd written and said, oh, okay, well, I'll just transfer it to you. Well, if they did that, then you were no longer eligible for the 15% cut rate commission. Unsurprisingly, a lot of people were very unhappy about this, because just because you're having an app transferred to you doesn't automatically mean that you're a multi-million-dollar business. And that's, of course, as well, is only revenue. That's not profit. That's revenue through Apple. So who knows how much money you would be spending elsewhere. But fortunately, last week, Apple decided or announced their decision to change this. So now it doesn't matter if the app has been transferred to you as a developer, or if you created it yourself, you continue to receive that 15% commission rate up until you earn $1 million through Apple, at which point they will change it to 30%. But it's basically good news for small developers, which, of course, is the people who really make the App Store what it is.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. So there was an interesting bit of news that hit Twitter and other places that may give us a glimpse at the next set of colors for Apple's cases. So one thing that folks may or may not know, maybe you didn't notice that this is something that Apple does, but you were just going, oh, cool, there are new case colors available. Apple releases cases and or colors seasonally. And so they've got a spring collection that's coming. It will likely be that Apple Watch bands will also get these or similar colors. And so Apple kind of launches these all together at one time. Again, probably after the March event to kind of lock into spring. And so one leaker has revealed a bunch of new colors for spring. These are some really interesting pastels that remind me kind of Fisher-Price, if you will. So yeah, if you kind of want to get an idea of what these cases might look like, this is a good way to check that out. And also Apple Watch bands, if you're, kind of trying to plan for your next set of Apple Watch bands, this is a great way to get an early look potentially at that. Again, these are leaked. This may not be what the final colors look like. These may not even be real iPhone cases, but it's also always worth mentioning these things, I think, whenever we do the show. Let's do one more story. Rosemary and I continue to lament at the lack of an iPad app for Instagram. How is it, Rosemary, that to this day, we still don't have an Instagram app for the iPad? What's going on?
Well, the head of Instagram commented on Twitter about the lack of iPad app, saying there wasn't enough demand for it. And I really feel this is exactly the same problem that Microsoft had with the Windows Phone. There were no apps for the platform because there were no users, and there were no users on the platform because there were no apps. There is nobody using the Instagram app on the iPad because it is a terrible experience with an iPhone that is blown up to take up the vertical size of your phone, of your iPad. That's it. That's all you get. And so there's no demand. No, there is plenty of demand. It's just that the Instagram app really, 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 really sucks on the iPad. You can't even split screen and things like that. It's really terrible. And it would be really nice if Instagram just went, yeah, sure. Like we'll just put the Instagram app properly on the iPad. I would really hope that they've not coded it in such a way that it's really difficult to do that. But I really feel like the head of Instagram has got the wrong end of the stick there. That is a chicken and egg problem, not that there is nobody that wants it.
Yeah, exactly. I really, really, really want an Instagram app for iPad, not just the web version, but alas, I don't think it's ever going to happen. And unfortunately, there aren't great, in the way that Twitter has great APIs so that third parties can build apps for Twitter, that does not exist with Instagram in the same way. So it's not easy to make an Instagram third-party app.
Instagram actively works to try and prevent any developers from using the internal APIs that they have to fetch data and blocks them at every possible opportunity. Unlike Twitter, who has an API which isn't the best. They don't give people access to everything, unfortunately. But at the very least, there is an API that people can use.
Mm-hmm. All right. I can hear the music. It's time for Shotcuts Corner. This is the part of the show where you write in with your shortcuts requests, and Rosemary Orchard, the shortcuts expert, provides a shortcuts response. Up first is Danny. Danny writes in, "Hey both, love the show. I've bought lots of apps you've suggested and I'm always trying to learn better ways to use my machines. As a long-time Googlier, I made the jump to Apple 3 years ago and never looked back. I use shortcut automations and was delighted when I found the method for silencing the notifications within screen time /notifications, etc., and switching off the notifications. My issue is, after 1 or 2 days, this seems to revert to giving me notifications again. It does this on all my devices, iPhone 13 Pro, iPad Air, and both iPad minis, both 5th and 6th generation. I wondered if this is a common thing and if there's a way around it other than to keep switching it off. Thanks, Danny." Can you first describe what Danny's talking about going into screen time to make adjustments to notifications?
Yeah. So if you open up your iPhone and you've enabled screen time, if you haven't enabled screen time, you're going to need to do some digging around. Then you can go into the screen time information. And then if you scroll down, then you'll see information like your last week's average, most used apps, and so on and so forth. And then at the bottom, you see notifications. Now, Mikah is going to be really happy to hear that there were 495 notifications from due last week. And I did actually do all the things eventually. But what you can also do here, if an app is sending you notifications and you don't want them, so say, for example, I don't want notifications from Discord, then you can turn it off. And you can do that through here, and you could do that with Shotcuts as well. The problem with this is Shotcuts doesn't support turning off notifications. So that means that it would just flip that switch and turn them back on. Because if I open Discord, for example, then this is the standard settings options for Discord. Shotcuts doesn't have that. And that meant that this didn't keep working, unfortunately, for Shotcuts. But the good news for Danny is, and I'm sorry, Danny, that we didn't answer your question for a little while, because I was waiting for this feature to be available and then close enough to release that I could tease you with it. What you can do inside of Shotcuts, every time you run an automation or an automation runs, then there's an option to turn off notify when run. And what this means is whenever this action happens, it's not going to pop up a notification at the top of your screen and then show it to you. It's going to still send a notification, I should note. There is no notification-free experience in Shotcuts, but it lands straight into this lock area, which is, pretty great for, at the very least, not dealing with having a notification pop in. This does only work for automations, I should note. If you put a shortcut on your home screen, it will still pop up a notification when you tap it to run it, and so on and so forth. Notifications that you actively try to create inside of Shotcuts, those still appear. But there is one further option that I feel I should mention, and that is because of Shotcuts not appearing in the notifications area generally, there is a little hack that you can do to get rid of Shotcuts notifications, and that is a focus mode. Unfortunately, you can't enable notifications from Shotcuts in a focus mode, but equally, they're automatically disabled. So while you're in the focus mode, you won't see them, which means that you get a less notification or happy version of Shotcuts, which hopefully will give you a much better experience.
Nice. All right. The next one comes from Cody. Cody writes, "Hey, Mikah and Rosemary, I have a question for Rosemary that I'm hoping she can answer. When I'm at home, I watch iOS Today in video and in the car with audio via CarPlay. The other day, I was listening to an episode while driving to work and thought something was interesting and wanted to check back in video format later in the day. I completely lost the timestamp for that part and spent a good amount of time scrubbing the video later in the night. My question to you is, while I'm driving, how can I use a Siri shortcut to take the current timestamp of the playing podcast and log it somewhere like the Notes app? Been a fan since the beginning. With love from Canada, Cody." Oh, sending love to Canada for you, Cody. This is a great one. There are often times where if I'm listening to something or even just thinking something while I'm driving and I'm going, oh man, I really wish I could have just noted that so that I could come back to it later.
Yeah. So there are a couple of different things you can do. And obviously one of them is you can, attempt to get Siri to take a screenshot, but that's kind of tricky to actually do. And so one of the first things I did is, and unfortunately, we don't actually know, Cody, which podcast application you're using, but there are a couple of useful actions depending on which player you're using. So if you're using Downcast, there's an option to get your current episode information, and Overcast similarly has an option for that. But unfortunately, there is nothing really about the current playback time, because that matches up, of course, between the iOS and the video versions of the show, or at least as close to it as is possible. But what you can do, and this is what I thought was actually quite neat, is what you want to do is take a screenshot, because if you take a screenshot, this is not perfect, but if you take a screenshot, if you will actually have the information that's on your lock screen. And if you have something playing, then it will show up here at the top on your lock screen. And of course, your phone is going to be locked while you're in the car using CarPlay, or at least I hope it's locked. And so what you can do is do something like save timestamp. And then what we do need to do, and this is very important, is you need to make sure you save that. Because if you don't save that image is just going to disappear. And so what I would suggest is that you save it to a photo album, and maybe you even create a specific photo album for this sort of thing. And then what you can do is you can just say the name of your shortcut to use that in the car. And that, as a bonus, will also give you exactly which episode that you're listening to and the title of it and so on and so forth, because you'll have all of the information that's on the lock screen. And Siri isn't going to pause or stop what's happening. Siri just does the normal thing of where they pause briefly, the voice comes on, does whatever you want, and then it goes back and it resumes whatever you were listening to before. And this can be really, really useful. So there isn't a brilliant way to get your current timestamp, but there is a way to save this information easily for you to be able to access it later.
Very, very good. All right, folks, we are running out of time, so we are going to move right into the App Cap segment next. Alrighty, it is time for our app caps. This is the part of the show where we wear caps atop our head to honor our app or gadget picks of the week. Rosemary Orchard, tell us about the cap atop your head, or should I say the cat atop your head, and then tell us about your pick of the week.
Well, the cap atop my head is more of a headband than a cap, and it's some cat ears. I would like to tell people there were no cats harmed in the making of this. There was no actual cat on my head. It's just some black little cat ears with some white and pink and black fuzz inside of them because, fluffy cat ears are, of course, adorable. And my app pick for this week was born of a very, very, very long-standing frustration. I have a Ring doorbell because it was one of the few options available when I was looking for a smart doorbell, and I have a peephole. So I have the old Ring peephole doorbell, which unfortunately is not available anymore. But the thing that's been driving me crazy is how long it takes between me getting a notification and tapping on it on my phone versus me actually being able to see what happens on the other side of my door, which usually is when I'm not at home and I want to communicate with whoever's there to please leave the parcel. Guess what? They've gone by the time the standard Ring app opens it. But there is an app that does exactly what I want, and I've just checked. There is nobody outside, so I'm not going to be accidentally giving away somebody's privacy by doing this, and that is the Rapid Ring app. So Rapid Ring is made by Ring, and it allows you to set up your doorbells, but when you get a notification, it is just a lot faster at jumping straight into the live stream. I'm not quite sure why they couldn't do this with their own app, but it means that I can see what's outside. And what's really cool is it's automatically jumped to portrait because, my phone is portrait on screen, but my phone itself in my actual hand is in landscape mode. But it does jump straight to this. Obviously, I've got the sound and everything turned off at the moment, but there's a pickup button and a hang up button, and I can turn the noise on and off from it, and it works, and it takes a second at most to jump to my doorbell. Obviously, this will be dependent on you having a good internet connection, but it means that, guess what? I can actually see what's going on my doorbell and respond to people in a speedy manner. So I have turned off the notifications for my doorbell from the Ring app, and I just have them from this. That said, I have left notifications generally for the Ring app turned on, and there's a very simple reason for that. That is that I still want notifications about low battery because I still have to plug my Ring doorbell in to charge it every once in a while. But it solved my problem, so I'm really pleased. Thank you to the article that I found online telling me about this the other day, which unfortunately I've not done a great job keeping track of my notes this week, Mikah, because I lost that one as well. But I'm very pleased that this app exists. And Ring, can you maybe just improve your main app?
Yeah, that would be good. We will see. I saw some early mentions of the event being sort of officially announced, but I'm not seeing any confirmation of that just yet. So some folks are claiming that Apple has announced the event for March 8th officially, but no full confirmation of that just yet. So it could be that later today we will see for sure that there is an Apple event. But as it stands, I don't feel comfortable saying for sure that there is, as we haven't seen any full confirmation of it. All right, so the app that I want to talk about today is one that corresponds with what we've been talking about. We talked about one of the features with health and safety, and it was a feature called Headphone Accommodations. And one of the things that was mentioned was the ability to use an audiogram to make adjustments to the sound that you hear through your iPhone with compatible devices. There is an app called Mimi Hearing Test, and it uses a really interesting audiogram test to determine what or how well you can hear, and then uses that to be able to give you information or give your phone information for your audiogram. So I can't show you the test because if I did, then it would completely reset everything. And so I'm going to leave it as it is right now. But it says, basically you go through and you have to use a pair of compatible headphones. What's cool is that Apple's AirPods Pro, and also the ones that used to come with an iPhone all work for this, as well as some Sennheiser headphones. And so you wear one of those, the compatible ones, and then while you're wearing them, it will do both of your ears. In your left ear, it will play some sounds, basically a beeping tone. And essentially what you do is you hold down the phone while you can hear the beeping tone. And then the second you can no longer hear the beeping tone, you lift up your finger. And then it'll play sound again. You hold it down and then you let it go when you can't hear it anymore. And it goes through a range of sounds across different frequencies. And it also accounts for like reaction time. So if you're worried that you're not fast on pushing the button, that's okay. It's not necessarily going to be an issue there. And as you can see, it's got my audiogram here, and it shows my left ear and my right ear, which was kind of interesting to hear that my right ear does not hear as well as my left ear, but it is still well within the range of very little loss. And so it shows the frequencies down at the bottom and the hearing loss on the left. Up top is no loss, and down at the bottom is more loss, and then it shows the frequencies at which that loss exists. So you can see that at 250 hertz, my right ear has 30 decibels of hearing loss, and my left ear has about 15 decibels of hearing loss. And then through up to the highest frequencies, I have no loss at all. Then afterwards, you can send this information to the health app, where your phone can then use Headphone Accommodations to set that up for you, so that it will make adjustments to the loudness and also frequencies to give you the best sound possible based on your own unique hearing ability. It's super, super cool. And well worth checking out. It's free to download in the App Store. It appears that Mimi is making its money by partnering with different headphone manufacturers so that you can use a Mimi hearing test to get the best sound possible with those different headphones. So free to download, free to use, no in-app purchases, none of that. You don't even have to create an account if you don't want to. They will let you just completely do it within the app itself. I went ahead and created an account just in case I do get a pair of headphones eventually that have Mimi's hearing features. But I think this is a really cool app and a really cool way to check out your own hearing ability and get an idea of what it looks like for you, what your hearing loss might be. With my hearing capacity and silence, this is basically 0% hearing. Well, I shouldn't say 0% hearing loss, but this is well within the range of no hearing loss. And so that's why that rating is there at the bottom that says no hearing loss. And so super fun. I just having that information was really cool. I also love that it was clever about the setup process. Nothing felt like if you went too far and then you messed something up that it wasn't going to work. It had the option to, like, it knew when I unplugged, because I decided to switch from the AirPods, the EarPods, which don't have very much isolation, to my AirPods Pro, which do have isolation in the middle of the test, just so that I could do it, or not in the middle of the test, before the test started, but while I was doing setup. And it paused everything and said, hey, you need to get some headphones plugged in that are going to work with this. So once I had my AirPods Pro in, then the setup was able to continue. So very awesome, I think, to go check out. You can go to mimi.io, or again, we'll include a link in the show notes to check this out, at which point it will let you add your audiogram to your settings, and then just follow the link that we included for Headphone Accommodations to be able to customize the sound based on your own individual audiogram. So there is an option within the health app, within the accessibility settings, and that will let you make an adjustment to your sound so that you get better sound out of it. That is, again, Mimi Hearing Test. And this is the end of this episode of iOS Today. If you've got questions, feedback, Shortcuts Corner requests, etc., send those to iostoday@twit.tv. Of course, we record the show live every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, so you can tune in live to watch the show by going to twit.tv/live. But the best way to get the show is by going to twit.tv/iOS, where you can subscribe to the show in audio or video formats. You just click on subscribe to audio, subscribe to video, and choose your podcast application or service of choice: Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, all those different places. We are in those places. And as the listener mentioned earlier, listens to both the audio version and watches the video version. We do our best to make sure that both have as much description as possible, so that if you are not able to watch it, you can still get as much out of it by listening. I should also mention Club Twit, twit.tv/clubtwit. That is a great way to support the network, to support our shows, and to just all around get some great stuff. You get all of Twitch shows ad-free. So instead of our free versions being made possible by the advertisers, these paid versions are made possible by you, and so have no ads. You also get access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else. I'm really excited about a project I have coming up for the Twit Plus feed, which I'm not going to mention just yet, but I will soon reveal what that is. And then also you get access to the Discord server. That is the place where you can chat with fellow Club Twit members and also those of us here at Twit. There are lots of people in the Club Twit Discord hanging out all the time, sharing great GIFs and having great conversations there during the show and after the show, before the show, all the time. Twit.tv/clubtwit, $7 a month gets you all that good stuff. If you'd like to support this show directly and get an ad-free version of the audio feed, you can do that by launching Apple Podcasts, looking up iOS Today, finding the audio version of the feed, and then subscribing for $2.99. By doing that, $2.99 a month, you'll get ad-free version of the audio feed. Rosemary Orchard, if folks want to follow you online and check out all the great work you're doing, where should they go to do so?
The best place is over at rosemaryorchard.com, which has got links to all the things I do online, including other podcasts, and of course, links to all my social media, including Twitter, where you can find me at Rosemary Orchard. And if you're in Club Twit, then I am indeed in the Club Twit chat room on a regular basis. Mikah, how about you?
Awesome. I can be found at Mikah Sargent on many a social media network, or by heading to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUAHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. Thank you so much. Take charge of your health, take charge of your safety, and we will see you next time on iOS Today. Goodbye.
Bye.
Did you spend a lot of money on your brand new smartphone, and then you look at the pictures on Facebook and Instagram and you're like, What in the world happened to that photo? Yes, you have. I know. It happens to all of us. Well, you need to check out my show, Hands On Photography, where I'm going to walk you through simple tips and tricks that are going to help make you get the most out of your smartphone camera or your DSLR or mirrorless, whatever you have. And those shots are going to look so much better. I promise you. So make sure you're tuning in to twit.tv/hop for Hands On Photography to find out more.